Okay everyone, so Autumn has practiced and practiced and she's done very well. So what I've done is I've created a pattern based off her sizes. We previously picked out, or Autumn did, some fabric that she likes. Basically we're going to just use two of the pieces of the fabrics that she picked out, and maybe we're going to add a little bit of lace. So we're going to just get a little creative with this project, right Autumn?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I've shown Autumn how to prep her fashion fabric. We've ironed it to get the wrinkles out, and we've turned it to the wrong side because this is the side that we will be cutting our pattern on. You want to make sure that your pattern is simple and easy to read for your beginner so that they will have no trouble. So we're going to go ahead and lay our pattern and start cutting. So you're going to need to show your beginner how to lay the pattern down on the fabric. This one is on the fold, and so we can lay it down one of two ways. We can use weights like these. These are easy for the beginner to use, but we're not going to use weights this time. Instead, we're going to use pins. So first, pin your pattern down so that it stays in place. And one other thing that you can do is teach your beginner to trace around the pattern. That makes it easy for them to cut as well. Okay, so we know that we always have to practice safety. So if we are going to be using a rotary cutter like this one, we want to protect our hands. In this case, we're going to protect the left hand. So for Autumn, she's going to protect her left hand. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to cut a rectangle like this all the way around the dress, and this is going to help you to maneuver while cutting out the pattern. So I suggest having your beginner use the cutting tool that they are most comfortable with, whether it's a rotary cutter or a pair of scissors. The best thing is to make sure that they are comfortable. Now, it also depends on the type of project that you're using as well. So here, Autumn is trying out the rotary cutter. However, for this project, I think it's best to switch over to scissors. At times, it may be a little tricky for your beginner to maneuver the scissors around curves. So teach them to use just the tip of the scissors by opening and closing the scissors only a little bit, and that will help them to get around the curves. So we've used just the tip of the scissors to make our way around the curve. Working with small amounts of fabric at a time makes it so much easier for your child to cut out the pattern. We've done a great job cutting out our first piece. It came out really, really nice. So now we need to just cut out one more piece and then cut out the bottom portion, and then we'll be done cutting out the pieces for our dress. We've marked the center of our two front pieces and we've pinned it, and we've pinned it right side to right side. Next, we're going to find the edge and we're going to pin from the end to the center, and then again from the other end all the way to the center, from the end to the center. That's going to help to make sure that the edges are even. great job with the pinning, Autumn. Look at that. Now we're going to use the sewing machine and sew a 1/2 inch seam. Okay, now that we have completed our 1/2 inch seam, there are a few ways to finish the seam. One way is to use a serger or a overlock machine to finish your seam. Another way is to use pinking shears to finish the seam, or to use a zigzag stitch. In this case, we're going to use a zigzag stitch. Okay, so we have chose to do this zigzag stitch that came out pretty good. It's a small zigzag stitch, and what we need to do now is just go ahead and cut very close to the edge of the stitch without cutting the zigzag. Now you're going to need to take a nice pair of sharp scissors like these and cut very close to the zigzag. So these scissors will get very close, and if you do have a beginner, feel free to show them how it's done. Remember, watching is part of learning. This is how nice it looks once you've trimmed all the way down to the zigzag. The next thing to do is give it a nice press. Then you're going to pin the sides together and then sew those seams at the machine. So now that we've attached the front to the back with a 1/2 inch seam, and we've also zigzagged for our seam finish, we're going to trim in the same way that we did earlier. Now it's time to give our seams a good press. Our side seams are always pressed towards the back, and when we're finished with the iron, as always, we place it facing away from us. Now that we have a really nice press on the side seams going towards the back, it's time to add the binding to the armholes. For this, we are going to use single fold bias tape, and we're going to first pin it and then attach it to the armhole and use a 1/4 inch seam all the way around. So what I've done is I've marked a 1/4 of an inch on the bias binding. I used a contrasting color, and I did that so that she can have a guide to follow, because a 1/4 of an inch could be pretty tricky. And I've used fabric markers. This one is a darker color, it's purple on the yellow, so she can see it very well. Make sure that it's a fabric marker so that it'll disappear and don't leave a stain on your fabric. Okay, so we have stitched a 1/4 of an inch, or Autumn has. She's done a great job. Nice job, Autumn. Now that we have this 1/4 of an inch stitch or seam allowance, so we're going to fold the bias tape over. We're going to give it a nice press, and then we're going to go ahead and edge stitch it right along this edge, very close to the edge, to attach the bias to the dress. We are nearing the end of our project, and this dress is turning out so cute. So we are going to create a casing because we are going to put a tie. So what we need to do is right here, create a 1/4 of an inch fold, press it, and then we're going to turn it down another inch, and then we're going to go ahead and top stitch right along our fold. And so we'll have a casing like this where we're going to put our tie. So here I'm showing Autumn how to edge stitch her casing. So I'll start here, and then I'll back stitch, and then I'll continue sewing all the way down. So remember, beginners also learn by watching. All right, so as you go, remember, always move your pins. We never want to sew over any pins. Okay, so we're just going to carefully edge stitch all the way to the other end. And don't forget to keep your fingers out of the way if you're a beginner. I'm not a beginner, so I tend to get really close to the presser foot. But as you're learning, make sure to keep your fingers back. And so we're going to get all the way to the end. And don't forget to go ahead and back stitch. Okay, and then there we have it. We're done. I mentioned earlier how important it is to let your child be as creative as they want to be when it comes to their sewing projects. So Autumn is the one that chose this beautiful white 3-tiered lace, and I thought that it was a great idea. It just adds a very delicate element to the dress. It's so pretty. And so I've lengthened the stitch, and I'm just attaching the lace starting at the seam, side seam. So just go along the top of the lace with a nice long stitch. Okay, so right where the seam meets the dress, and just be very careful not to catch the other side of the dress to the front. Just be very careful that everything is out of the way. And so once we do this, we are almost done. We just have to create the tie and then give it a hem and a good press, and we're done. Okay, so now we're working on the tie. We are almost done. This is so exciting. So what we've done is we cut 2 strips, 36 inches by 3 inches, folded in half. We are going to go ahead and make a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So Autumn is going to sew. This is where she learned how to pivot, or she's practicing. She's going to pivot right here at this dot. I put this here for her as a guide, and we're going to watch Autumn as she shows us how to do it. So Autumn has done a great job pivoting at the corner and then sewing a nice straight line all the way across. She did a great job. Look at this, it's really nice. So what I've done, or I showed her to do, is to leave an opening so that we could go ahead and turn the tie inside out like this. But before we turn it, we'll cut the corners here on both ends of the tie. Okay, so here's the tie. That was pretty easy to go ahead and turn it inside out. And you see we have our opening, which we are going to top stitch and close that up. But before we do, what we want to do is just go in and create 2 points with a tool that's able to make a nice sharp point, but be careful not to poke a hole in the edge of your tie. Just go in and maneuver the fabric so that you create a nice point. And when we're done doing this, we're going to give it a nice press, and we're done. That's our tie. You're going to sew your shoulder strap in place, but before you do, determine how many inches you want your shoulder strap to be. So we are almost done. We're down to the last element of finishing your dress. How do you like it?
I like it because it has daisies on it.
Oh yeah, it does. So we are about to hem. As you can see, we did about a 1 1/4 inch hem, 1/4 inch, and then we folded it and pressed it down about 1 1/4 inch, and we pinned it all the way around. Now you can help your beginner to do a straight stitch on the sewing machine, or you can do a hand stitch, and we've decided that we're going to do a hand stitch. Now Autumn has been working on hand stitches. I'm going to show you. Here's a few. So of course, cross stitch, a basting stitch, straight stitch. Now these are all hand stitches. We practice how to put buttons on, and what we're going to do with the skirt is we're going to be doing this whip stitch. All right, so we're going to get started and we'll be right back. So we have already done several of the whip stitch here. You see, Autumn is really good at it, and so the process is very simple. Teaching your child to sew is absolutely rewarding. With dedication and patience, your child will be all smiles. So here you have it, this really beautiful, gorgeous sundress that Autumn loves. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. Post some beautiful pictures of your child's first creation. I'd love to see it. Thanks. Bye-bye for now.